Hi kids, it's Tania McCartney back again with a final peek inside the pages of Fauna. I think in one of the other videos I had promised you that I'd take you through the extinction featured in the book, and it's super fascinating. We're also going to look at Australia's dinosaurs. So how about we get into it? All right, so let's have a look at the contents page, and you can see here that we have at the end of the book oh yes, extinction here. So that's page 42. Let's skip to page 42 and see what discoveries we can make. Okay, so here's the spread here, and you might recognize an animal or two on this spread. For example, this creature up here, the Tasmanian tiger, the thylacine. Of course, a lot of us know about the thylacine. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. And of course, northern hairy-nosed wombat. So let me just have a little look up here at the, this is called the intro text for the spread. And let me just read to you about extinction in Australia. The headline says it's not good news. We are now in the Holocene epoch. So that's from 10,000 years ago until today. And changes to our environment in Australia and our fauna have occurred since Indigenous people arrived in Australia tens of thousands of years ago. But the greatest and most damaging changes have occurred, of course, in the last 200 years since Europeans arrived in Australia. Our country now has the worst mammal extinction rate in the world. Isn't that shocking? And as our country further develops and climate change takes hold, our most unique and most curious creatures are the ones at greatest risk. And that is super sad because we certainly have some original and incredible mammals in Australia, particularly our marsupials. So you can see here that I have listed on the pages two sections. So the one on this side is critically endangered. So that means these animals have not got long left unless we step in. And of course, some people are doing that, which is great. There are many endangered species, but these animals are on the brink of extinction. Some could be gone within just a few years. So let's have a little look through. The grey-nosed shark, the east coast population, that's in a lot of trouble, would you believe it? The leadbeater's possum, of course. The southern corroboree frog, the woylie, freshwater sawfish, the southern bent-winged bat, mountain pygmy possum, oh, they're so adorable, and of course the northern hairy-nosed wombat. So there are three species of wombat, of course. There's the northern hairy-nosed, and also, in fact, I can just quickly show you here. Look, you can see the different wombats here. So we have the common wombat, which is actually least concern, so that's doing fine, thank goodness. Northern hairy-nosed, now that one is critical, and the southern hairy-nosed wombat is near threatened, so that's also in a little bit of trouble. But yeah, our dear northern friend is in a bit of trouble, unfortunately. Then on the other side of the spread, we have recent extinctions, and that are animals that we have lost in the last couple of hundred years. There are many, 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 but just to give you an idea of some of them, the dwarf emu in 1827, that was the last sighting. The paradise parrot in 1927. And here's the Tassie tiger that I was talking about. The last known animal was in 1936. So probably our most famous extinct species, the Tasmanian tiger, was the largest known carnivorous marsupial of modern times. This nocturnal shy animal was the last member of its family. Extensive hunting was blamed for its extinction, and the last known tiger died in captivity at Hobart Zoo in 1936. There have been, this is really interesting, there have been hundreds of unconfirmed sightings of the tiger in the wild since then, most recently in Victoria in 2008. So fingers crossed, Remember, the wilderness in Tasmania is extremely thick and hard to penetrate. So a lot of people, obviously can't get into the deep, deep wilds of the wilderness there. So fingers crossed that there are some remaining tigers somewhere, and we can have them in our lives once again. The lesser bilby, you of course would know of the greater bilby, which is our our Australian Easter bunny. There was a lesser bilby that was last seen in the 1960s, around the size of a rabbit. The lesser bilby lived in the deserts of central Australia. It was nocturnal and quite aggressive. Can you believe it? The oral tradition of local Indigenous people suggests it may have become extinct in the 60s. Its less aggressive cousin, the greater bilby, is now considered vulnerable, unfortunately. And then the last one I wanted to show you on this recent extinction page was in the 1980s, and this was a critter called the southern gastric brooding frog. Amazing frog. This Queensland frog was unique in that it incubated its young. Now, let me tell you what that means. The female would swallow her own eggs. Then she would stop feeding, which would allow the babies to develop inside her stomach, where she digests food. It's crazy. When ready to hatch, she would open her throat and the babies would crawl out of her mouth. Ew. Both the southern and northern gastric brooding frogs became extinct in the mid-80s. A cloning attempt known as the Lazarus Project began in an attempt to resurrect the species. And in 2013, there was a major breakthrough when embryos were successfully cloned, but further work needs to be done to keep the embryos alive. So keep your eye on that brooding frog. We may have a resurrected species. Okay, now let's have a look at the extinction page. You might have heard of Megafauna, have you? You have? Good. I thought you might. Megafauna were giant, more ferocious versions of some of our modern-day native animals. These giant creatures included echidnas, platypus, koalas, kangaroos, and they roamed our land during the Pleistocene era or the last ice age. And that's when Indigenous people first arrived in Australia. Scientists believe hunting and fire management may have contributed to the extinction of megafauna, which died out 46,000 years ago. Now, I'm just going to take you through some of the megafauna that were really famous. So there was a giant echidna, a giant platypus, a giant roo, a giant koala, a wombat. And let's have a look at one of them. So the giant platypus, it was nicknamed Godzilla. This mega platypus was 1 metre in length, or around twice the size of the modern version. It also had a full set of teeth. Although it is born with teeth, the modern platypus loses them by adulthood. Let's have a look at Sturton's thunderbird. Nicknamed the demon duck of doom, this prehistoric flightless bird is said to have been the tallest and heaviest bird that ever lived anywhere. It was up to 3 metres tall and 650 kilos in weight. It had a long neck, stubby wings and strong legs. Despite having a really powerful beak, it was thought to have been a herbivore, so only eating plants, of course. I also wanted to let you know about the marsupial lion. So at up to 160 kilos and 1.5 metres from head to tail, the marsupial lion was the biggest Australian carnivorous mammal ever known. It had special shearing teeth and large semi-opposable thumb claws. So semi-opposable, of course, means my fingers and thumb oppose each other and I can grasp. So obviously that lion must have had semi-opposable thumb on its claws, meaning it could kind of grasp things. Its hind feet had roughened pads, making it capable of climbing trees and dropping down on its prey. And then I wanted to let you know too, this is incredible, the Buff Downs giant python. This Queensland snake lived during the early Pliocene era and is believed to have grown up to 10 metres long. You must get out a measuring tape and measure how long that is because it's long. And actually this would make it over 2 metres longer than the modern day snake, the largest, longest modern day snake we've got in the world. And that, of course, is the Asiatic reticulated python. So talk about record setting here in Australia. All right, and to finish off, I wanted to show you Australian dinosaurs. Now, dinosaurs have lived well, they did leave during the Mesozoic era, and that was roughly 230 to 65 million years ago. And of course, we all know they rapidly and suddenly died out. So this Mesozoic era was divided into 3 periods. You might have heard of these: Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. The Triassic was when all land on Earth was connected in one big mass called Pangaea. You would have learned about that surely as well. During the Jurassic period, of course, Pangaea split, didn't it? And it formed 2 big land masses. It was Laurasia in the north and Gondwana in the south, which is what Australia is part of. In the Cretaceous period, land began forming into the continents we know today, and it was when flowering plants and insects appeared and when the sudden extinction of the dinosaurs happened. So dinosaurs of Australia are not very well known. We only have about 17 of them that we've discovered so far. So let's have a look at 4 of the most interesting. The first is the Mythunga pterodactyl here, and it was a flying reptile with a box-like snout and large interlocking teeth. With an enormous span of 4.7 metres, its wings were similar to bats with a skin membrane supported by elongated 4 fingers. It lived near the Eromanga Sea, and of course that was that large inland sea in the middle of Australia. The Kronosaurus is a short-necked pliosaur. Kronosaurus fossils were found in Queensland. It suggests that it weighed as much as 9 tonnes and measured from 10 to 12 metres long, making it one of the largest marine reptiles ever known. Its teeth were the size and shape of small bananas. Wow, that's big. It had 4 flippers and a short tail, and it also lived in the Eromanga Sea. It was a very fast swimmer. The Australian ichthyosaur was up to 7 metres long. It was a dolphin-like marine animal, and it was again in the Eromanga Sea. It was an apex predator. Now, can you imagine what apex? Apex is at the top, right? So an apex predator would be one that feeds on a lot of other things, but doesn't really have any predators, doesn't have anyone above it that would eat it. It had large eyes that helped it see in the dark waters of the Eromanga Sea. And lastly, lightning claw. Nicknamed lightning claw, this megaraptoid was discovered in the 90s in Opal Fields, southwest of Lightning Ridge in New South Wales, dating back 110 million years. The megaraptoid family may have evolved in Australia, then branched out across the Gondwana big expanse of land. It would have been about 7 metres in length, which would make it our biggest carnivorous dinosaur that we currently know of course. Okay, what an interesting journey to go back in time and discover our extinct creatures, our dinosaurs, our megafauna. It's such a fascinating topic. If you're a dinosaur lover, you will love to explore Australian dinosaurs. There's a little bit online. You can head to the museum, National Museum and National Geographic online and check out some information there. I hope you enjoyed this last little peek at fauna. It's a joy to take you through this book. I had so much fun researching it, and and I just love Australian animals. They are a fascinating bunch. I hope you're all doing really well and that school goes back relatively soon and that you're not going too stir crazy at home. Keep reading. Non-fiction books are fantastic because we can learn and grow, and there's so much fascinating information. So I hope that you get lots of reading done during this time and stay safe and well. And I will be back soon with some more book picks. Bye for now.